60 years ago, the world witnessed a space race between two superpowers, the USA and the USSR. Both nations poured vast amount of their economy into the one goal, reaching the moon. Fast forward to today, and we are on the brink of another space race. This time, it's not just between two countries. The competition is expanding, with Russia, China, SpaceX, and NASA all vying for dominance on the lunar surface. NASA is preparing for the Artemis mission, aiming to land astronauts on the moon once again. Meanwhile, Russia and China have announced plan to construct a permanent lunar base before 2030, focusing on the mining and construction. But what does this mean? The urgency behind these missions suggests a growing recognition of the moon's strategic and economic value. As Earth's resources dwindle and global tensions rise, space exploration is no longer just about a scientific discovery. It's about a survival, expansion, and the future of humanity. So guys, let's start from the beginning. First, we need to understand the Cold War of the 1960s. After World War I, tension between USA and USSR escalated into a fierce technological and ideological rivalries. Then in 1961, the Soviet Union shocked the world by sending Yuri Gagarin into the space, the first human ever orbit the Earth. This event was a wake-up call for the United States. In response, President John F. Kennedy made a bold announcement: the US must land a man on the moon before the end of this decade. You might have heard this story before, but to truly grasp its significance, you need to understand the gravity of the moment in the history. This led to one of the humanity's greatest achievements, Apollo 11. A lot of people have been asking me in the comment, if Apollo 11 landed on the moon in 1969 and more astronauts too, why aren't we going today? What changed? First, we need to understand what was happening back then. Some people today are even skeptical, saying those missions were fake, but instead of conspiracy theories, let's look at real reason: economics. At that time, the US was spending over 4% of its economy on the Apollo program, but today NASA's budget for space exploration is only about 0.4% of the economy. That's a huge difference. This funding shift is a major reason why we haven't seen another moon landing in decades. But it's not about money. Back then, space exploration was a global obsession. People were extremely enthusiastic about becoming astronauts. The Apollo missions inspired an entire generation of scientists, engineers, and entrepreneurs. If you listen to the speeches of many innovators today, you'll hear them say that Apollo was their first inspiration. Now, let's talk about the impact of Apollo. Beyond space travel, the Apollo program led to a groundbreaking technological advancement. It accelerated the semiconductor industry, revolutionized the materials science, and paved the way for modern computing. It wasn't just a Cold War race between the US and Soviet Union. It was a giant leap for all of the humanity. However, after the Cold War ended, the situations changed. The Soviet Union collapsed, partly because it had drained its economy, competing with the US in space and military spending. With that rivalry gone, public interest in space exploration started fading. Media coverage declined, governments shifted their budget elsewhere, and over time, lunar exploration was put on hold. But now, things are changing again. A new moon race is beginning with a greater competition. NASA's Artemis program, China's lunar ambitions, and private companies like the SpaceX working on the returning to the moon for good. Think about the competition level in the 1960s. Back then, only two superpowers, the USSR and the USA, were competing. But today, the game has changed. Unlike the Cold War era, where only governments led space exploration, today private companies alone have the potential to rival the entire nation. But this is not just about who gets there first. Companies are competing to build 3D printed rockets for rapid manufacturing, reusable rockets to cut costs dramatically, fully reusable ultra-cheap launch vehicles that will make spaceflight more affordable than ever before. This competition is not just a race for power, it's a race for affordability and innovations. History shows that competition drives technological progress. The same is happening with the space travel. What was once exclusive to government is now opening up to the world. And speaking of revolutionary technology, let's let's talk about SpaceX's Starship. This isn't just another rocket, it's a leap forward in space travel. You can compare Starship to the legendary Saturn V. It's the fully reusable. Know that today even comes close to its capabilities. But this isn't just another Cold War. This is something different, a fourth-generation space race. The modern space race is more intense than ever, with China making rapid advancement. China deployed 2 orbiters and rovers to Zhurong rover on Mars. These milestones prove that China is heavily invested in space exploration. Their goal to win this new space Cold War. China benefits from Russia's deep experience in space exploration. The USSR was a pioneer, setting a countless records in space. Now China is collaborating with Russia, sharing knowledge and resources under common geopolitical ideologies. Their alliance strengthened their chances of stabilizing a moon base before 2030. On the other side, NASA faced challenges. Unlike in the past, NASA doesn't have the same level of direct technological dominance. Instead, it relies heavily on the private players like SpaceX, Blue Origin. While China and Russia work as government entities, but America has competitive edge is the private sector, the space factor. Why the US had the advantage? SpaceX is revolutionizing industries with an unprecedented launch cadence, 4 missions per week. No other countries or companies can match its pace. SpaceX's rapid launches mean they can deploy more cargo more quickly at a lower cost. Imagine if nations compete to build a moon base. Country using traditional rocket might take years, but SpaceX with its Starship system could deliver hundreds of tons of cargo in just a month. Starship with its fully reusable design and 100-ton payload capacity will make space transportation significantly cheaper and more efficient. Starlink, the financial engine for space dominance. Beyond rockets, SpaceX has another advantage. Once it becomes fully operational and profitable, SpaceX will no longer depend on external funding. Instead, its revenue from Starlink will fuel the next generations of even more advanced space technologies. With this self-sustaining financial model, SpaceX could outpace every government space agency, including NASA, Roscosmos, and CNSA. This is why America, despite facing challenges, still hold the strongest position. Elon Musk aims to create a self-sustaining industry and establish bases on Moon and Mars before the year of 2100. The goal isn't just ambitious, it's essential for the future of humanity. To make this reality, we need companies like SpaceX. The rapid innovation and technological breakthrough bring us closer to turning a moon base into reality within our lifetime. However, major challenges remain, particularly the hostile environment and the low gravity of the Moon and Mars. While we acknowledge these difficulties, is establishing infrastructure and SpaceX is leading the way. Many countries are now investing in these technology, recognizing the strategic importance of the moon. But why is the race so critical? Because the moon is the gateway of space colonization. If humanity wants to travel beyond Earth and expand into the solar system, the moon will be our first step. Mars is millions of kilometers away, while the moon is much closer. That's why our first priority should be establish a moon base. If we succeed, it will serve as a gateway to space colonization. Because the moon is just so close to Earth, we can maintain a stable supply chain. Transporting food, energy, and equipment will be much easier and cheaper. Sending supplies to Mars, we can even remotely control operations from Earth in real time, something that's impossible on Mars due to long communication delays. Moon base will also accelerate technological advancement in fields like vertical farming and 3D printing and autonomous robotics. These innovations will not only help us survive in space, but also improve life on Earth. However, this is also one of the humanity's biggest challenge. Creating the first permanent settlement beyond Earth is no small task. But once we establish for deep space exploration, if you found this video interesting, let me know in the comments and I'll dive even deeper into these topics. Thanks for watching.